Good morning, everyone. So, this is the continuation of our report, and the next topic is communication. Conflicting parties have other ways to resolve their differences. When husband and wife, or labor and management, or nation X and nation Y disagree, they can bargain with each other directly. They can ask a third party to mediate by making suggestions and facilitating their negotiations, or they can arbitrate by submitting their disagreement to someone who will study the issues and impose a settlement. So, what is bargain, mediate, arbitrate? So, for the next slide is these are the short definition of the three. So, bargaining. Bargaining is seeking an agreement to a conflict through direct negotiation between parties. So, bargaining is mangitalagway or agreement para sa usa ka conflict para okay ang usa ka conflict through direct negotiation between parties. And mediation is an attempt by a neutral third party to resolve a conflict by facilitating communication and offering suggestions. So, mediation. So, kaning mediation, ang neutral third party, mauni sila ang mangita og solution para ma-okay ang usa ka conflict by facilitating communication and offering suggestions. Like, mag-advise sila ang mediate by making suggestions and facilitating their negotiations. And fourth, next, arbitration. Arbitration is a resolution of a conflict by a neutral third party who studies both sides and imposes a settlement. So, kaning arbitration is muna siya process nga ang neutral third party kay i-study nila ang both sides of parties and ma-impose sila settlement para ma-resolve ang katong conflict. So, bargaining. So, if you want to buy it or sell a new car, are you better off adopting a tough bargaining stance, opening with an extreme offer so that splitting the difference will yield a favorable result, or are you better off beginning with a sincere, good faith offer? Experiments suggest no simple answer. On the one hand, those who demand more will often get more. So, Robert Cialdini, Leonard Beckman, and John Cacioppo provide a typical result. In a controlled condition, they approach various Chevrolet dealers and ask the price of a new Monte Carlo sports coupe. In an experimental condition, they approached other dealers and first struck a tougher bargaining stance, asking for and rejecting a price of a different car. When they then asked the price of the Monte Carlo, exactly as in the controlled condition, they received offers that average some $200 lower. So, tough bargaining may lower the other party's expectations, making the other side willing to settle for less. But toughness can sometimes backfire. Meaning a conflict is not over a pie of fixed size, but over a pie that shrinks if the conflict continues. A time delay is often a lose-lose scenario. When the strike is prolonged, both labor and management lose. Being tough is another potential lose-lose scenario. If the other party responds with an equally tough stance, both may be locked into positions from which neither can back down without losing face. For example, in the weeks before the 1991 Persian Gulf War, the first President Bush threatened, in the full glare of publicity, to kick Saddam's ass. Saddam Hussein, no less macho, threatened to make infidel Americans swim in their own blood. After such belligerent statements, it was difficult for each side to evade war and save face. As this illustrates, although tough and even angry bargaining may sometimes gain more time or money, it can backfire when the negotiation concerns values, personal beliefs about what's important in life. So, next slide is about mediation. A third-party mediator may offer suggestions that enable conflicting parties to make concessions and still save face. If my concession can be attributed to a mediator who is gaining an equal concession from my antagonist, neither of us will be viewed as weakly caving in. So, turning win-lose into win-win. So, mediators also help resolve conflicts by facilitating constructive communication. Their first task is to help the parties rethink the conflict and gain information about the other's interest. So, typically, people on both sides have a competitive win-lose orientation. Example, they are successful if their opponent is unhappy with the result, and unsuccessful if their opponent is pleased. So, the mediator aims to replace this win-lose orientation with a cooperative win-win orientation by prodding both sides to set aside their conflicting demands and instead to think about each other's underlying needs, interests, and goals. A classic win-win story concept, for example, a classic win-win story concerns two sisters who quarreled over an orange. Finally, they compromised and split the orange in half, whereupon one sister squeezed her half for juice while the other used the peel on her half to make a cake. If the sisters had each explained why they wanted the orange, they very likely would have agreed to share it, giving one sister all the juice and the other all the peel. This is an example of an integrative agreement. Compared with compromises, in which each party sacrifices something important, integrative agreements are more enduring because they are mutually rewarding. They also lead to better ongoing relationships. So next is unraveling misperceptions with controlled communications. So communication often helps reduce self-fulfilling misperceptions. Perhaps you can recall experiences similar to that of this college student. So often after a prolonged period of little communication, I perceive Martha's silence as a sign of her dislike for me. She in turn thinks that my quietness is a result of my being mad at her. My silence includes her silence, which makes me even more silent, until this snowballing effect is broken by some occurrence that makes it necessary for us to interact, and the communication then unravels all the misinterpretations we had made about one another. So, tungod aning occurrence that makes it necessary for them to interact, nagka-communicate sila and nag-clear ang katong misinterpretation they had earlier. Like, na-open nilang, ang ani di ay, na dili di ay ani ana. So, in table 2, it shows here how couples can argue constructively. So, na I do not and na I does. So, for do not evade the argument, give the silent treatment, or walk out on it. Do not use your intimate knowledge of the other person to hit below the belt and humiliate. Do not bring in unrelated issues. Do not feign agreement while harboring resentment. Do not tell the other party how she or he is feeling. Do not attack indirectly by criticizing someone or something the other person values. And do not undermine the other by intensifying his or her insecurity or threatening disaster. For those, do clearly define the issue and repeat the other's arguments in your own words. Do divulge your positive and negative feelings. Do welcome feedback about your behavior. Do clarify where you agree and disagree, and what matters most to each of you. Do ask questions that help the other find the words to express the concern. Do wait for spontaneous explosions to subside without retaliating. Do offer positive suggestions for mutual improvement. Those I have mentioned are the things that we should avoid and we should do while we are having misunderstanding with others. It could help us resolve our conflict with them. So children, for example, can learn that conflict is normal, that people can learn to get along with us who are different, that most disputes can be resolved with two winners, and that nonviolent communication strategies are an alternative to a world of bullies and victims. This violence prevention curriculum is not about passivity. Noted Deborah Prodrose state, it is about using anger not to hurt oneself or one's peers, but to change the world. Conflict is normal, but we don't have to hurt somebody or hurt ourselves to resolve the conflict. Instead, we can communicate about it and we can communicate or talk about this and resolve the problem. For example, David Johnson and Roger Johnson put first grade through 9th grade children through about 1,000 hours of conflict resolution training in 6 schools with heartening results. Before the training, most students were involved in daily conflicts, put-downs and teasing, playground turn-taking conflicts, and conflicts over positions. Conflicts that nearly always also resulted in a winner and a loser. After training, the children more often found win-win solutions, better mediated friends' conflicts, and retained and applied their new skills in and out of school throughout the school year. When implemented with the whole student body, the result is a more peaceful student community and increased academic achievement. So, because of the third party's help, murag na-resolve ang conflict niya and often found a win-win solution. Like, na-resolve nila nga walay na lose and walay win, murag both sides naging okay because of the third party's help or the mediator's help. So conflict researchers report that the key factor is trust. If you believe the other person is well-intentioned, you are more likely to divulge your needs and concerns. Lacking trust, you may fear that being open will give the other party information that might be used against you. Even simple behaviors can enhance trust. In experiments, negotiators who were instructed to mimic the other's mannerisms, as naturally empathic people often do, elicited more trust and greater discovery of compatible interests and mutually satisfying deals. When the two parties mistrust each other and communicate unproductively, a third-party mediator, a marriage counselor, a labor mediator, a diplomat sometimes helps. So, mao ni sila mga mediators kunyari sa kasal or what. Often the mediator is someone trusted by both sides. So, mediator is someone you can trust to help our conflicts with others. Next topic is arbitration. So some conflicts are so intractable, the underlying interests so divergent, that the mutually satisfactory resolution is unattainable. Conflicting claims to Jerusalem as the capital of an independent Palestine versus a secure Israel have so far proven intractable. In a divorce dispute over custody of a child, both parents cannot enjoy full custody. In those and many other cases, disputes over tenants' repair bills, athletes' wages, and national territories, a third-party mediator may or may not help resolve the conflict. If not, the parties may turn to arbitration by having the mediator or another third party impose a settlement. So disputants usually prefer to settle their differences without arbitration so that they retain control over the outcome. Neil McGillicuddy and others 1987 observed this preference in an experiment involving disputants coming to a dispute settlement center. When people knew they would face an arbitrated settlement, if mediation failed, they tried harder to resolve the problem, exhibited less hostility, and thus were more likely to reach agreement. In cases where differences seem large and irreconcilable, the prospect of arbitration may cause the disputants to freeze their positions, hoping to gain an advantage when the arbitrator chooses a compromise. To combat the tendency, some disputes, such as those involving salaries of individuals, baseball players are settled with final offer arbitration, in which the third party chooses one of the two final offers. Final offer arbitration motivates each party to make a reasonable proposal. So what is arbitration? So arbitration is a form of alternative dispute resolution in which two or more parties agree to resolve their dispute outside of court with the help of an impartial third party known as as arbitrator. The arbitrator listens to both sides of the dispute and makes a decision, which is usually binding in the parties involved. Arbitration is often used as a faster and less formal alternative to litigation and can be used to resolve a wide range of disputes, including disputes involving contracts, employment, and consumer protection issues. So what is final offer arbitration? So final offer arbitration is a type of arbitration in which the arbitrator is required to choose one of the final offers made by the parties involved in the dispute. In other words, the arbitrator does not have the power to make their own decision or to compromise between the parties' offers. Instead, they must choose one of the offers in its entirety. Final offer arbitration is often used in situations where the parties are unable to reach an agreement through negotiation or mediation. By requiring the arbitrator to choose one of the final offers, final offer arbitration can help to encourage the parties to make their best offers and to come to a resolution quickly. However, some critics argue that final offer arbitration can be unfair to one of the parties involved in a dispute, as the arbitrator may be forced to choose an offer that is not in their best interest. So next topic is cancellations. Sometimes tension and suspicion run so high that even communication, let alone resolution, becomes all but impossible. Each party may threaten, coerce, or retaliate against the other. Unfortunately, such acts tend to be reciprocated, escalating the conflict. So with the strategy of appeasing the other party by being unconditionally cooperative produce a satisfying result? Often not. In laboratory games, those who are 100% cooperative often are exploited. Politically, a one-sided pacifism is usually out of the question. So what is conciliation? It is a form of alternative dispute resolution in which a neutral third party, known as a conciliator, helps the parties involved in a dispute to come to an agreement. The conciliator works with the parties to identify their interests and concerns and define solutions that are acceptable to both sides. Unlike arbitration, conciliation is not a formal legal process. The conciliator does not have the power to make a binding decision. Instead, the role is to facilitate communication and cooperation between the parties and to help them to reach a mutually satisfactory solution. Conciliation is often used as a faster and less adversarial alternative to litigation and can be an effective way to resolve a wide range of disputes, including disputes involving contracts, employment, and consumer protection issues. It is particularly useful in situations where the parties are willing to work together to find a solution but need help to overcome communication barriers or to understand each other's perspective. So next slide is about GRIT. It is an acronym for Graduated and Reciprocated Initiatives in Tension Reduction, a strategy designed to de-escalate international tension. So social psychologist Charles Osgood, 1962 to 1980, advocated a third alternative one that is conciliatory yet strong enough to discourage exploitation. Osgood called it Graduated and Reciprocated Initiatives in Tension Reduction. He nicknamed it GRIT and labeled as just the determination it requires. So greed is a negotiation strategy that involves taking small, incremental steps to build trust and reduce tension between parties in a conflict. The goal of greed is to create a positive feedback loop in which each side takes a small step towards the other, leading to greater cooperation and a resolution of the dispute. Greed is based on the idea that conflicts often escalate because the parties involved are afraid to make the first move or to show weakness. By taking small, gradual steps, parties can demonstrate their commitment to finding a solution without exposing themselves to unnecessary risk. For example, a party in a dispute might agree to a small concession in exchange for a similar concession from the other side. Over time, these concessions can build trust and create a climate of cooperation that can lead to resolution of the dispute. Greed can be an effective strategy in a wide range of conflicts, including disputes involving negotiations, mediation, and arbitration. By taking small reciprocal steps, parties can overcome the fear and mistrust that often prevent them from finding a resolution to their dispute. Sir Martin Dorsch, 1993, captured the spirit of greed in advising negotiators to be firm, fair, and friendly. Firm in resisting intimidation, exploitation, and dirty tricks. Fair in holding to one's moral principles and not reciprocating the other's immoral behavior despite his or her provocations. And friendly in the sense that one is willing to initiate and reciprocate cooperation. So my last topic is about postscript, the conflict between individual and communal rights. So the conflict between individual and communal rights is a long-standing issue that has been debated by philosophers, politicians, and legal scholars for centuries. On one hand, individual rights are considered to be fundamental to a just and democratic society and are often protected by law. On the other hand, communal rights, which refer to the rights of groups and communities, are also considered to be important for ensuring social cohesion and fairness. One of the key challenges in balancing individual and communal rights is the tension between personal autonomy and social responsibility. Individual rights are often seen as a way to protect individuals from the interference of the state or other powerful actors and to ensure that they are free to make their own decisions and pursue their own interests. Communal rights, on the other hand, are seen as a way to protect the interests of groups and communities and to ensure that individuals do not act in a way that harm others. In many cases, individual and communal rights can come into conflict, and it can be difficult to determine which rights should take precedence. For example, the right to freedom of speech is an individual right that is protected by many legal systems. However, this right can sometimes come into conflict with the rights of communities, such as the right to be free from hate speech or discrimination. Overall, the conflict between individual and communal rights is a complex and multifaceted issue that requires careful consideration and balancing of competing interests. While both types of rights are important for a just and democratic society, finding the right balance between them can be challenging and requires ongoing dialogue and debate. So that would be the end of my report, and I am Crystal J. B. Robesa, your presenter, and thank you for listening.